Okay, so let me start my topic. So I'll defer my introduction to the last. Based on my topic I choose here. So my topic today is differable views. So I'll start with the problem statement what we have. So all the Angular applications, whenever we try to add new features to it, we end up adding multiple components to it. So this ends up increasing your main bundle.js file. So higher the size, higher the load time. So that is the main problem for our Angular applications. So, and this has a bad user experience. So to resolve this, what is the options that we have? We have lazy loading, which is given by Angular. So we have to pull up few of the components and then we have to start lazy loading so that our main culprit file, main bundle.js file will come down. So this will load faster and give a better user experience. So, but the problem is you cannot extend this feature to all the components. So, because the existing lazy loading is a complex feature that we have and it's not easy to extend to all the components. So, we end up with few selected components. So, now the solution, deferrable views. So, this is the new feature released as part of Angular 17. So, this will help you to defer load any component in your Angular application. But the catch is, there is a catch. You cannot defer all the components, you can defer only standalone components, where standalone components again is a new feature which is released in your previous release. So as I said, this is a new feature in Angular 17 and defer loading is possible only for a standalone component. So you have to have a migration in place. So you have to migrate your existing components to standalone components first. So this deferred views is not a new feature now. So it's altogether it's an upgrade for your lazy loading. So lazy loading is already a new feature, already a pre-existing available feature. So the catch is you have to have a migration, you have to move all your components to standalone components and then you can use deferrable views. So the benefits. So you have a reduced initial load time, as I said, your main bundle.js file will come down. So this will eventually reduce your load time. The next is the improved memory usage. So your file to process, it comes down so that your memory usage also will come down. So this means that you are targeting low end devices now. So low end devices means you are increasing your user base. So also it enhances your user experience. So if it is a faster or fast moving app, so it will give you a better user experience. And all this will add up to your improved core web vitals. So your core web vitals will improve for your application and this eventually will increase the rank of your application. So that's the final goal for any application. You should have a greater good user base, happy user base, and you should have a good web vital so that you'll have a top ranked application. And improved maintainability and increased flexibility, these are the two other benefits where you can avail when you try to divide your feature with the good components, standalone components, so that you can extend them easily and then reuse these components in other features. So I just added one slide to just give a difference between the legacy lazy loading, this is the code, and how it is transformed to standalone components and use deferred views here. And finally, this is the code that get transformed, but this is not the complete what I can say use case. I'll just show you the use case, complete use case with all the defer blocks. And this is a typical syntax of deferred views. So you have 4 blocks here: defer, placeholder, loading, and error. So the syntax is like this. So that's first is all the blocks are readily available on your HTML. So you don't need any imports to import on your TS file. It's readily available. And the first defer block, it will just enclose your standalone components. So it can be a single component or you can have multiple standalone components that you can enclose. And this will get deferred and will not be part of your main chunk. And you have a placeholder here. So this is optional again. And what it does is it just try to reserve your space on your web HTML page. So I'll just ask you a question here: why do we need a placeholder? If it is just a static HTML and it's gonna replace at the end, what is the use of this placeholder? Anybody? Sorry? Why do we need? I can just put the content word which is standing below, you can stand onto the top. But the problem is it will just rush down your content down, or it will push the content down, and which will affect your one of the web vital. Yeah, CLS, content layout shift. It's one of the web vital that will get affected because your content will slowly shift down. Yeah, and the next is the loading. So this is just a loading screen that we show, and this is just to add a pleasing effect for your user base. So, and you have some attributes here, minimum, after, and yeah, minimum and after. So this is just to stop the flickering of your content. So you just may give some time slot so that it will just show up there for that time period, and then it will slowly close. So this is just to stop the flickering of this content. And last but not the least, the error block. So we can use this for showing some errors whenever there is a problem in your deferred load, deferred views. And yeah, the one important point to note is these dependencies that are used in placeholder and the loading block, they get eagerly loaded. So try to select the content which is less with less weight. So don't go for a heavy components again here, because your main intent of your deferred views will be lost here. So try to use less weight content here so that it will be main intent will be carried forward. So the next is I tried some animation here. So the first is the placeholder content is getting loaded, and you will see an image, just a static image there. And whenever the user tries to click here, I'll start the loading. The second block loading block will trigger, and there will be a GIF there. So it will just show up, and during this time period from here onwards, we'll start loading the dependencies of your main the differ component, the app video. And so this starts loading, and once the load is complete, this app video will start initializing, and finally it will just replace the content. And this is the workflow basically between the blocks, and this is the UI that gets transformed like this. And so here, so far we just read what is the definition so far here. Now we need what are the triggers, what is going to trigger this, and when we can trigger this. So these are two types of triggers that we have. One we can specify with on attribute, the other is with a when attribute. So I'll go with when first. So when is a Boolean expression. So whenever it first evaluates to true, it will just trigger the differ block. And post that any change on that expression will not impact this differ block. So it triggered, that's all. So the other one is with on. So I'll go with on attributes later. But the important points to be noted here are you can have multiple triggers, and whichever first triggers will trigger the differ block. So you can have multiple, and just we can have a semicolon and then separated by semicolon, we can give multiple triggers here. And yeah, so we'll go with the triggers that we can refer by on. So these are all provided by Angular out of the box triggers. So first is immediate. So whenever your parent it triggers immediately with the parent. So whenever the parent loads, it triggers the differ block. Idle. So whenever the browser idle callback function triggers, this gets triggered. And you have a timer delay. So it's like a time bomb. So whenever timer ticks, it triggers the differ block. And the other three, viewport, over, and interaction, this needs an option. This has an optional target element. So this target element, we try to choose a target element, and whenever it tries to reach to the viewport trigger will trigger. And the other over and interaction is just like a user. Whenever he tries to target, interacts with this target, this trigger the differ block. And this target is optional. Just we have a question mark behind, so it's an optional parameter. So if that is not mentioned, your placeholder content is taken as target. So this is the important point here. Yeah. So the next is the prefetch concept. So this is something like your components or dependencies for your what I can say deferred block. If it is too heavy and if it takes more time to load, so you want some more time to load. So for this you can have a prefetch configured so that this has its own trigger. So you give a trigger which will fire prior to your deferred block. So the time between these two triggers will be reused to download the dependencies. So that is the concept of this, and we have the same out of the box triggers available here, but only the point to be noted here is the immediate is not a good use case, what I understand, because it will put the load, initial load, so it's better to avoid this. And the next is idle, timer are the best use cases. And if you come to viewport and over and interaction, here as I said, if target is not mentioned, it will use the placeholder. So if the placeholder is referred, the main intent is lost again here, because you are just reaching out to defer block and then you start loading your dependencies. So there is no point of using this prefetch here. So it's better you target one of the element which will load prior to your defer block, far before the defer block, so that you can use the time to load your dependencies. So I have written some code here. So this is, I wanted to show, this is a container reference where we are using lazy loading. Sorry. So we have a container reference code here. So where this is legacy lazy loading concept, where we are trying to import the heavy component here and then adding to your container reference tag. This is like just like a DHTML. So where we create the element and add it to the parent. So this is how we load, and this is a legacy lazy loading concept. And here we have used deferred component, deferred views, where we use the same heavy component here, and we are using all the placeholders here. So same code, it's ended up with 50 odd lines here, which is transformed to almost 20 lines there. And this is all pure HTML. And just we have created few components with some of the triggers. This is on interaction. So I'll show you the running code, it's better. Yeah, so this is on interaction. So this is the element that is placed in a placeholder. So I'm trying to create a interact here. So it loaded a GIF there, and post that you have a heavy component loaded. And I am assuming that this is my heavy component. So this is again over. So whenever I over, it triggered. And viewport, I have an element at the bottom. So I'm just trying to scroll, and it triggered. And here I have a timer. It is ticking for 4 seconds, and it will start. And for error, I have to show, I'm disabling here, and then I'm hitting the error here. So it has some issue with the with loading the chunk. So it showed us the error while loading. This is the error block. I think it is offline. So this is the legacy lazy loading, where with the container reference and the same functionality. So this is the code for it. Maybe I'll share this code later. Yeah, so that is all from my end, and thank you.